Hello, namaste, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Cricket for Us. And today we are going to talk about the T20 World Cup 2022 in Australia. And I've got Aaron, the cricket connoisseur, the man who knows everything about cricket. I say it almost every time in almost every single intro, but it's true. He knows a lot and he teaches me every time by talking about associate nations or freaking stats from 1885. He knows them all and I love it. Thank you, Aaron, for joining. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good to be honest, Ajjad. I mean, one thing straight off the bat, which you can probably tell compared to normal, the voice isn't sounding too great today. Unfortunately, got a bit of a cold, but other than that, having a nice break from cricket at the moment, and then of course we've got the T20 World Cup to look forward to. So, yeah, can't really complain, and yeah, should be a fantastic tournament, shouldn't it? Over in Australia.
100%. Right. So I'll tell you the format very quickly. We're going to go through the group, the Super 12 teams, the ones that have already qualified. We're going to talk a bit about each team, first Group 1, then Group 2, and then their players to watch out for, which is the key bit that I want to understand from your perspective. Let's begin. Group 1, Australia, England, New Zealand, and Afghanistan. Let's start with your team itself, England, right?
Careful.
Right. With England are known as the best wide ball side in the world, right? They've recently just beaten Pakistan at home. They have the ability to play super aggressive, and even when they're losing wickets, they still keep going on with their method of go hard or go home kind of approach. Getting someone like Ben Stokes, Joss Buttler, potentially Liam Livingstone back in the side, huge pluses after being rested or injured or away from the Pakistan series. How do you see England faring in this year's T20 World Cup?
Similarly to last year, I think England definitely on paper have to be up there as one of the top three teams. I think we all know the top three on paper heading into this competition. It's Australia, India, England on paper. But as we all know, T20 cricket is definitely not played on paper. It's a very, very chaotic format. But looking at England, that batting department is ridiculous. The top order is incredibly strong. That top four, whichever combination England go with, even if Ben Stokes is batting at 4, I mean, that is ridiculous depth in that top order. And then the finishers. I mean, English cricket at the moment is producing some gun T20 options. And this T20 World Cup is a fantastic way to describe and display the growth and the power that we do possess in that particular facet of our game. So that's one thing which I'm very much looking forward to is the batting. I think we're going to be very strong in that particular department. The big question for England, though, is death bowling. Yeah. And that was the issue in last year's competition, as we saw in the semi-final against Daryl Mitchell and New Zealand. Now, aside from Chris Jordan, England don't really have an out-and-out death bowling option. I mean, we have got guys who can do it in theory. Mark Wood has done it in the past. Sam Curran's done it in the IPL. But other than that, the options are looking a little bit thin. So that's the one area of weakness, I think, for England on paper. But overall, if this England side clicks, yeah, we're in for quite the firework-laden tournament.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And on the back of that, you mentioned a few points about finishers and about the fact that England's batting is absolutely stellar. If you had to pick one player that you'd consider a player to watch out for England, who would that be?
It's got to be Joss Buttler, hasn't it? Let's be completely honest. Top order batter. He's obviously got the additional pressure of captaincy as well. So his leadership will be vital for the 3 Lions and a crown in this particular tournament. But Joss Buttler is just such a fantastic innovator. He plays 360-degree cricket. He can single-handedly take apart any bowling attack on the planet. So for that reason, I'm going with the England skipper. Yes, he's had his injury problems, but if Joss Buttler comes to this tournament in good form, as he did in 2021, yeah, we are in for some masterclasses and some Joss Buttler fireworks in the 2022 T20 World Cup.
Yeah, can't wait. Let's see if he gets on. But if he does, totally agree with you. Let's talk about Australia. It's their hosts and current T20 World Cup champions, holders, sorry. So how do you see them in this year's tournament?
Through gritted teeth, I think they're the favourites. I really do. I think Australia are the favourites to retain their crown. I can't believe I'm saying that from 2021 because a lot of people, myself included, didn't expect them to win last year's competition. But they've brought in an X factor this year by the name of Tim David, who, as we all know, you'll know from the PSL, I know from English county crickets, and of course the IPL. Tim David's a monster. Tim David and Glenn Maxwell finishing off an innings together just writes itself, doesn't it? I mean, that's so much power, so much destruction within that middle order. Those two really will make the difference for the host in this particular tournament. You look at the bowling options, even with the spinner Adam Zampa, you got Maxwell, who himself can provide some control with the off spin, and then the seam attack. Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins. It's ridiculous. This Australia side in home conditions are the absolute outright favourites, in my opinion. But then again, in the T20 World Cup, the favourites tag means nothing. So they'll still have to be on the ball. They'll have to produce these brilliant performances regardless. But yeah, I think, in my personal opinion, Australia, on paper at least, definitely the team to beat in this competition.
Yeah, it's very apparent on paper, 100%. I totally agree with that analysis. If you had to pick one player, though, I know current form, we've seen Cameron Green do it a few times, but he's not in the squad. I was shocked. I was speaking to someone yesterday, and I was like, yeah, he is. And then I realized, no, he's not in the squad. But do you think, number one, will he be included potentially? He be slotted into the squad? And number two, who would be that player to watch out for, from your opinion?
Potentially. I'm a very, very big fan of Cam Green. I've been watching him for quite a few years now for Western Australia, across all formats. That boy, he's ridiculously talented. His ceiling is immense, and he's just going to be one of these next global superstars. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not he is included. But even if he isn't, the guy's got time. He's only young. He's still making his way in international cricket. And yeah, we're certainly not going to hear the last of him anytime soon. In terms of standout player to watch, I'm going to go with Glenn Maxwell, because if Glenn Maxwell comes to the party with bat in hand, again, it's a difference maker for Australia. But in addition to that, let's say that Australia just need a couple of overs of off spin. Let's say things aren't working somehow with the seam department. If Maxwell can just provide a breakthrough or two over the course of this tournament, yeah, he's going to be massive. You know, he's a three-dimensional cricketer. He's so powerful, so destructive, going back onto the conversation about Jos Buttler as well. Yeah. So innovative, an enterprising cricketer with the switch hits and the reverse hits as well. I'm going with Glenn Maxwell. I think if he comes to the party, yeah, the Aussies might just go clear in this particular tournament.
Yeah, Glenn Maxwell. Unfortunately, he hasn't fired in T20 as much as you'd think, though.
He hasn't, but T20 is a format where form at times does go out the window. Yeah. All it takes, one big knock in this tournament, get his mojo back. Yeah, Glenn Maxwell, as I said, he's just someone to watch out for. Whether or not he'll be player of the tournaments, I'm not suggesting that for one second, because he can be very inconsistent. But in terms of player to watch, absolutely Glenn Maxwell.
Totally get it. Next team I want to talk about is a team that unfortunately has not had the best time of it in international cricket over the course of the last year. Since appearing in the T20 World Cup final, also winning the World Test Championship, New Zealand have just gone downhill, unfortunately. And I don't know how to process that. How do you see them entering this T20 World Cup?
Yeah, nowhere near as strong as last time. And actually, on the day of recording, they've suffered another big loss as well. Daryl Mitchell has been ruled out of the tournament. So I was already going to bring up this point, but New Zealand's finishers, in comparison to other countries, are lacking. And now you've just lost arguably your best finisher, the man who put England to the sword in last year's T20 World Cup semi-final in Abu Dhabi. So I think the Black Caps might struggle. And I hate saying that because they're such a likeable team. They were brilliant in last year's tournament. They're a side which everybody wants to do well. Yeah. But I'm looking on paper. And yes, again, they could prove us all wrong. But the bowling seems to have got a little bit weaker. Those finishing options aren't as varied as other sides, the likes of England, the likes of Australia, the likes of India, Pakistan with their finishers as well. The only thing which I can see New Zealand potentially excelling in against other sides is that top order. It's something which the Black Caps always excel at. You look at those names, you look at those big hitters, you've got the consolidator in Kane Williamson as well. If those guys can lay a foundation, they've got a chance because their bowlers are good. I'm not for 1 second denying that. But compared to the New Zealand teams of the past, I do think it's an area of slight weakness. So I don't think they're favourites for the semi-finals and, of course, the final beyond that. But yeah, I just wish the Black Caps all the best. It has been a very, very rough year for New Zealand cricket.
Yeah, and on that note, you mentioned Daryl Mitchell. Huge loss, absolute huge loss. Because after what he did last year, I genuinely would have thought he would be the guy I would pick. I would have picked for player to watch out for. But it's a huge loss. If you had to pick, considering after this, he's not included anymore in the squad, who would you pick as the player to watch out for New Zealand?
It is tough because, funny enough, Daryl Mitchell was going to be my original one, and I'm really annoyed because I wanted to bring up those performances from last year's T20 World Cup. For me, though, I think I've got to go Kane Williamson again. I know that's incredibly cliche, but his role in that team, now that Mitchell's gone, actually arguably becomes even more important.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have to see out pretty much the entirety of an innings. He's going to almost have to produce a Babar Azam or Mohamed Rizwan style innings for New Zealand to actually produce results. So I've got to go with Kane Williamson. If he does have a good tournament, obviously he's going to need some backup. But if he can produce a lot of runs, if he can see out the majority of overs in an innings and provide a foundation and a platform for the likes of a Jimmy Neesham and a Mitch Santner towards the end of an innings, the Black Caps might have an outside chance. But if he doesn't, that's where the flip side comes into it. If he has a bad tournament, I do think they'll struggle. So I'll go with Kane Williamson.
No, fair enough. I think I would, considering the circumstances, Williamson, he's bound to come back into the amazing form that he's been in for years. He's just hit that kind of trough, I think, or opposite of peak, whatever it is.
Trough. That's spot on. Yeah.
So hopefully he comes back up and does what he's been doing for a number of years for New Zealand. Let's talk about the final team that I'm going to talk about from Group 1, which is Afghanistan, a team that unfortunately just loves to almost beat Pakistan on many, many occasions, but also gets really close in other matches and beats Sri Lanka just in the Asia Cup right at the beginning of that tournament. Yes, they do sometimes crumble in the crunch moments, but as a team, they're very, very solid. And with the inclusion of Fazil Haq Farooqi, Naveen ul Haq, and I think it was Fareed Ahmed, the guy who came in the match against Pakistan, picked up 3 wickets. So they look a lot stronger than they have, in my opinion, than they ever have been because of that pace bowling facet added to their squad. So how do you see Afghanistan?
Again, we keep on using these particular words to describe Afghanistan. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be coming to fruition just yet. But you'd say the dark horses again, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Especially with those additional seamers. I know we keep on saying it, right? And they are inexperienced, don't get me wrong, but Fazil Haq Farooqi, watch out for this guy. He showed it in the IPL. He's showing it now for Afghanistan. He's a real talent. He really is, and he could be a difference maker. Naveen ul Haq as well. Came to England, played for Leicestershire, leading wicket taker in the T20 Blast. He's got all of these different tricks and skills and assets at his disposal. He is going to be brilliant in this particular tournament. I've got no doubt about that. I think Naveen ul Haq might just be an outside shout for someone who could potentially take Afghanistan to that next stage of the tournament. So he might be my player to watch out for, as Jad, spoiler alert, is Naveen ul Haq. The only problem that I have with this Afghanistan side, we haven't even spoken about the spinners. Again, another incredible facet. I think we've discussed them on many a show, though, with the likes of Rashid Khan and Mujibur Rahman. So maybe they don't need as big of a mention here. But the issue for me is with the batting. And we saw this in the Asia Cup. Hazratullah Zazai, Ramanullah Gurbaz, brilliant opening combo, but they need some help. They really do. In comparison to other sides, you look at a team like India, for example, if the top order fails, they've got Kumar Yadav to rely on. England have got plenty of options, as of Australia, as of other sides in this tournament. Afghanistan don't have that, at least not now. So for me, I think the real crux, the real Achilles heel of this Afghan outfit will be that batting lineup. In particular, the top to middle order.
Yeah.
That's where I find the most issue. In comparison to other teams, they don't look as strong. And in terms of performances, I mentioned that Asia Cup, they weren't even comparable to a Pakistan, for example, or an India. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting tournament. It would be incredible if Afghanistan could make it through to that next stage, but we'll have to wait and see. It is a tremendously difficult group that they find themselves in.
Yeah. And this is the funny thing. They're always in these types of situations where they get close. And that's what really hurts, I guess, because
it is.
Sometimes they do deserve to win, but something happens. And a lot of the time that's Pakistan related, but something happens and they are unfortunately not able to cross over the line. If you had to pick one player, is the spoiler alert true? Is it going to be Naveen ul-Haq?
Yes, it is. I love Naveen ul-Haq. Have done for years. Used to watch him in the CPL for the Guyana Amazon Warriors. Now got to watch him for Leicestershire in the T20 Blast, and now for Afghanistan. The guy's incredible. As I said, he really is just a box of tricks. He's got a brilliant slower ball. He's got a brilliant Yorker. He's got a deceptive off cutter. He's got a knuckleball at his disposal. Any ball you want him to deliver, Naveen ul-Haq can produce it, right? At times, don't get me wrong, he loses his radar because he searches for wickets, as does everybody in T20I cricket. But if he's on the money in this tournament, he's the kind of guy who can take 3 or 4 wickets a game, whether that's international or domestic cricket. So for me, the difference maker, yes, Afghanistan have got a certain Rashid Khan, who's got Big Bash experience, the leading T20 wicket taker of all time, is a once-in-a-generation phenomenon, right? But because I don't want to be too cliche, because everybody selects Rashid Khan, I'm going to go with Naveen ul-Haq. I back him to succeed. And as I said, if he's on the money, Afghanistan, dark horses.
I totally get that. And one day, sooner rather than later, I think they will not be dark horses. I think they are, and I don't want to compare teams, but compared to Bangladesh, they're probably, the progression has been a lot faster on the international scale. So yeah, I totally get that. Let's transfer our energy towards Group 2, where we have India, Pakistan, South Africa, and Bangladesh. So let's start with India. How do you see India in this tournament?
As I said, top 3 favourite. They look incredibly well balanced. I think the top order now, when you add in the Kohli factor and his resurgence, his renaissance in T20I cricket in 2022, they look tremendously strong. The only issue with India is the death bowling. It's a bit like England. And we saw that in this South Africa series. Without Jasprit Bumrah as well, that is a massive loss, isn't it? Jasprit's one of the best bowlers on the planet, if not the absolute best seam bowler. Gets your power play wickets, picks up wickets at the death, is economical as well. Just a menace to face for any opposition batting lineup. I still fancy their chances, though. I really do think they'll be semi-finalists. They had a horrible time of it in the UAE last time out. I don't think Lightning's going to strike twice, though. I really don't. I think they're going to bounce back strong. I think they're going to have a very strong tournament. And I think they are outsiders for potentially lifting that trophy come the final.
Wow. You already know they're going to get to the final. I like it. I like the positivity. Love it. If you had to pick one player, though, from India to watch out for, I would have always picked Jasprit Bumrah if he was in the team, right? Or Ravi Jadeja, but both of them are unavailable. Now, there's one man, right? One man that reaches for the stars, right? That goes up into the sky and performs and scores a strike rate of 170 odd, scored 1,000 runs and 600 odd deliveries. I think the quickest to 1,000 T20I runs with an average of like 50 odd. I can't even remember. You know the numbers better than I do. But I would pick that guy. Who would you pick for your player to watch out for?
I'm thinking of the exact same guy, Kumar Yadav. And in fact, I did do my prep for this particular show. And yes, I looked at his figures from 2022. He is, unsurprisingly, the leading run scorer in all of T20I cricket in this year, with 801 runs in 14 innings. That's a strike of 184, which is ridiculous for anybody on the planet. 184. I think he's averaging over 40 as well, but 801 runs. In fact, I don't think it's 14 innings. I think it's 27 innings, but even so, that's ridiculous. 801 runs, striking at 184. It's got to be Kumar Yadav. He scores centuries for fun. He scores 6s and 4s for fun. He can single-handedly destroy a bowling attack in the space of a couple of overs. He is the man at the moment, isn't he? In World T20I cricket. I mean, I think back to last year as well. Scored such a stylish century against England. And the guy's just got so much talent. It's ridiculous. He's classy, he's got elegance, he's got poise, he's got panache. Kumar Yadav, I think he might be the player to watch out for in the entire tournament. Forget just India's. I think if he comes to the party, goodness me, we as cricket fans are in for quite the showing.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's so good. He is so good. I feel bad for his 10 years in first-class cricket. But at the same time, I feel really glad because that means He got rid of everything and then just brought the best into the international stage. Let's talk about Pakistan, mainly because, I'm Pakistani, but also because they're the next on my list. Pakistan, as a team, how do you see them in this year's T20 World Cup?
Boom or bust. Simple as that.
Perfect elaboration of, because that's exactly how I feel. Sorry to cut you off. I had to say it.
No, that's exactly how I think it is going to be a case of they're either going to be absolutely magnificent, or they're going to have a really poor tournament. It really is as simple as that. And I think that lies mostly on that top order.
Yeah.
As we saw in the England-Pakistan series recently. If Rizwan and Azam can produce that match-winning plan of laying that foundation for that middle order and seeing out maybe 10 or 12 overs, laying that foundation, they'll be absolutely fine because they've got one of the best bowling attacks on the planet. Those seamers are ridiculously good, as are the spin bowlers, very good at controlling the narrative of a game. But if they lose early wickets, Pakistan have a tendency to just collapse like that. And that is the major issue that I can see at this particular tournament. We didn't see it as much in the Asia Cup, but that could present itself in this year's T20 World Cup. So I hope, for the sake of us as neutrals, I know, Asjad, you're a Pakistan fan, but for us as neutrals, I hope we get to see the best of Pakistan.
Yeah.
I really do, because when they're at their best, they are incredible to watch. But as is the nature of any major tournament, once that pressure's on, we could see the opposite and they could crumble. So we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But I do think it's going to be a very enigmatic tournament for Pakistan, in particular, given the issues surrounding that middle order.
Yeah, and one of the really big points is that Ramiz Raja has officially said that we're not going to bring anyone else out from the outside. It's going to be one of the reserves who comes in instead of some of the main 15, but it's not going to be anyone extra. So that's a positive, because I didn't want Pakistan to go down a specific route, but it's also a negative because you're going to bring in someone, and I know what they're going to do. They're going to bring in Fakhar Zaman for Khushdil Shah into the main 15. But the thing is, Fakhar Zaman's form, look at his last 13 T20 innings. He has 150, 120 odd, and the rest are single digits. So you're not bringing in someone who is in form, but you're bringing in someone to replace someone who is even worse out of form, if you know what I mean. So yeah, a lot of questions about that middle order, but we'll have to see. 100%. If you had to pick a player, though, to watch out for, considering Shaheen Afridi, we don't know if he's fit or not. If he was, like I said,
he would be my choice.
Yeah, but considering right now we don't know, so who would you pick from the player to watch out for?
Mohammad Rizwan. Simple as that. He is the second leading run scorer in 2022 in all of T20I cricket, and he has just been a revelation, hasn't he? I've said this for so many years. This is the player that Mohammad Rizwan could have been years ago. Yeah. He's always had this talent, but he always used to get himself out. Whereas nowadays, he's a lot more mature. He's a lot more intelligent as a player. He displays a greater level of cricketing nous and awareness. And he's just one of the best T20 players on the planet. Now, don't get me wrong. His strike rates is incomparable to other players, the likes of a Jos Buttler, a Liam Livingstone, a Tim David, and a Kumar Yadav. But his importance to his team is almost unparalleled. If Rizwan goes early, Pakistan lose the majority of their matches.
Yeah.
If he gets a 50-plus score and lays that platform for those finishers, Pakistan will win a lot more games than they lose in this World Cup. So for me, Rizwan, he's coming in good form. He's an outstanding player. He is almost this talismanic figure for the men in green. And if he does perform to the standards that we expect of him, Pakistan have got a good chance. They have. And I really want them to do well. I want to see Pakistan in those semi-finals because they're brilliant to watch. But I do think a lot relies on the shoulders of Mohammad Rizwan. If he does produce the goods, I think they'll be fine. If he unfortunately has a little bit of a poor tournament, Pakistan could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, and this is the thing. You kind of alluded to the strike rate. If we just look at strike rates, both him and Babar improved their striker from the Asia Cup into the Pakistan-England series dramatically. But the issue was that the perception is, oh, but 138 isn't good enough, or 143 isn't good enough. You're not winning matches. You're not doing that. So for that reason, they're always highlighted, even though they're the best players you got. They're the best. Like, look at that opening partnership. I know this video is about the T20 World Cup, but I just got to mention, right? 5 150 plus scores of a partnership in T20 cricket, seven scores of 100 plus, also a 200 plus score with that opening stand, chased 200 twice. It's like that opening partnership is fantastic. And Fazan met Shoaib Akhtar a couple of days ago at a charity event. And Shoaib Akhtar goes, yeah, Babar needs to come at 3. Fakhar Zaman and Shajil Khan should open, and Rizwan in the middle order with Babar. So I don't agree with that at all. And I do want your thoughts on that. But as soon as Fazan said this, I was like, well, yeah, of course he's going to say that. That's what he's been saying for like years. Because he wants Shajil and Fakhar to come in, both scored ducks, and Pakistan 0 for 2 after 2 balls. But anyways, yeah, sorry. Your thoughts on Shoaib Akhtar's comments? Just thought ask.
Well, I think the whole debate on strike rates is actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
But I've actually had a little bit of a new perspective on this.
Mm-hmm.
For any other team in the world, it would be a problem, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That strike rate, because obviously a lot of teams operate via their middle orders nowadays, as opposed to the top order. Look at England, look at India, look at Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Pakistan's different though. Pakistan rely incredibly heavily on those openers.
Yeah.
But the other key thing with Pakistan, when you look at their blueprint for victory, I suppose, is that if they do get a 150 score, you back their bowlers to defend it, no matter the conditions. And I think that's the difference with Pakistan. Whereas with England need a 180 plus score. Australia probably need a 170 plus score, even with the caliber of their bowlers. Pakistan are capable of defending 150 or 160. So even though the likes of Rizwan and Azam, their strike rates could be better, and yes, in theory, in an ideal world, you'd love to be scoring 190 or 200 every single game, maybe their contributions are a little bit underrated, maybe underappreciated at times by Pakistan fans. And maybe, just maybe, it's working for them at times, as we saw in the Asia Cup.
Yeah.
Just something to think about.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you. So very well put. So articulate. Aaron, the cricket connoisseur. I know that's not your full name, but it sounds really nice. Let's talk about South Africa. We've got 2 teams left in Group 2. With South Africa, a team that, yes, lost the first T20I match against India very badly, but then almost chased 237, and then in the third match scored 200 plus once again. So how do you see South Africa going into this T20 World Cup?
I think they're very strong. I genuinely do. I think the Proteas, compared to last year, look a completely different side. I mean, they beat England in a T20I series. Let's not forget that. But there is one big question, and that's their captain, Temba Bavuma, who in that entire series against India scored 3 runs over the course of 3 matches. So that already is a massive, massive red flag heading into this tournament, because South Africa before that series had Reza Hendricks in the form of his life. He was brilliant against England. He had scored a few 50 plus scores. He was marshalling the top order quite excellently. And all of a sudden, he's now been frozen out of the team. There is so much pressure now on Temba Bavuma to not just step up as a captain, where I think he's been brilliant. And in fact, when you look at the social media debate, not many people argue about his captaincy. He's a very shrewd, astute captain. He's excellent in the leadership department. But in T20I cricket nowadays, you can't afford to have a specialist captain. It's something which Owen Morgan spoke about. If he ever got to that stage, he'd retire. Owen Morgan retired.
Yeah.
As a result of it, Temba's got to score runs. I don't think they're going to drop him. I don't think they're going to make David Miller captain. But as I said, this is a huge tournament. And if Temba doesn't fire, there's going to be an awful lot of questions. There's going to be a lot of outside noise. It will be a case of how does South Africa deal with that white noise. And I think that will be the key thing in this particular tournament, because they've got the bowlers, they've got the middle order. David Miller is in the form of his life. You've got the wild card, the X factor in Tristan Stubbs. They've got the facilities, they've got the assets to go far in this tournament. But as I said, if the top order is a little bit shaky, that could undermine the entire operation down under in this year's World Cup.
Yeah, totally get that. And I think it is disheartening. Also, why has Reza Hendricks been kind of, kicked out of the 11? Do you know?
Yeah, it's to accommodate Temba Bavuma.
Is that the only reason?
Yeah, of course it is.
Wow.
Yeah, because Miller was the captain beforehand for the England tour. He was the stand-in. So Reza came in as an opener.
Performed and did brilliantly. They should find a way to fit him in, though. That's the thing. And you have to lose someone really important, or you lose your captain, right? The only drawback is you lose your captain. But I would personally, I'd be happier if they lost their captain. I must say, like, based on the morale and the way Temba is kind of going about doing things as of late, it's probably best for him and for South Africa. But I don't think that's going to happen till the end of the World Cup. I think they're not going to make any drastic calls right before such an important tournament. If you had to pick a player, though, considering Reece Hendricks isn't in the side, who would you pick as the player to watch out for South Africa?
David Miller. Do I need to expand upon it much more?
Nope.
The guy went and scored that century against India the other day.
He scored another he scored like 73 of 60 yesterday in the ODI game as well.
Yeah.
In a form of his life, man.
Exactly. That's the thing. How can you stop David Miller at the moment? And the answer is you can't. England can do it. India couldn't do it. I mean, even in the CPL, he's been giving it a bash. Like, how do you stop David Miller in this form? And bear in mind as well, he loves pace on the ball. It's being played in Australia. And the guy's got big bash experience for Hobart as well. All of these things are coming together for David Miller to have a very good tournament. And yes, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. But at the same time, David Miller is a big game player. I expect him to stand up and be counted for the Proteas. So David Miller, and again, I just want him to have a good tournament, because if he does get going, you're going to see some high 80s, 90s, potentially a century. I know that it's very difficult in a T20 World Cup, but if anyone can do it, it's Killer Miller.
Yeah. Oh, Killer Miller. Love it. Last team from Group 2 is Bangladesh. They just lost to Pakistan this morning, right? And they just didn't look the same side at all. So, thoughts on Bangladesh?
Yeah, it's not looking that great, unfortunately. I think in terms of their T20I approach, it's a little bit archaic in comparison to other teams. If you look at Bangladesh's trajectory in comparison to other teams like Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, I don't really think it's comparable. I think they're going in the wrong direction, to be honest. I know they've got some great bowling options. Mustafizur Rahman is outstanding, and he probably will be the X factor for them in this particular tournament yet again. But aside from that, now that the side's no longer got a Tamim Iqbal, no Mahmudullah, the middle order isn't as strong as Bangladesh sides of years gone by. I just don't fancy their chances. And I hate saying that, because I love Bangladesh cricket and have done for years. And don't get me wrong, they have got superstars in there. They've got guys who can change games and make a contest of it. But for the first time in a very long time, I'm just not confident at all. And even last year, I mentioned about their approach against England in Abu Dhabi, and it was just so negative. It was so defensive. For T20I cricket, you've got to leave everything out on the field. And again, they just don't seem to have made many strides forward. So through gritted teeth, and I hope that I'm proven wrong, I just don't fancy the Tigers' chances at all. I think this could be a very disappointing World Cup.
And on that somber note, if you had to pick a player, though, from Bangladesh, because this morning I saw two players that I really like from Bangladesh, Yasser Ali and Afif Hussain, and both of them performed, and Yasser Ali scored like 40 of 20. I thought, okay, this is the Yasser Ali I wanted to see, just not against Pakistan. But how do you see them, and who would you pick as the player to watch out for Bangladesh?
I wouldn't choose either of those two as my player to watch, because I've already mentioned mine, and that's the Fizz. And we all know why, because Australia is going to be a little bit more pace friendly, and the Fizz is just Bangladesh's X factor, isn't he? He's outstanding. Yorkers, pace, short balls, lovely. Everything you want in a world-class seam bowler. But it's a great job that you mentioned that, actually, Asjad. In terms of the finishers, that is something where I really want to see some improvement for Bangladesh. They are now without Mahmudullah, who in the past has been that go-to finisher at times. Yasser Ali, and in particular Afif Hussain. I've got so much time for Afif Hussain, have done since 2019. He scored 60 against Zimbabwe and Sylhet. And again, he's just a very powerful, punchy player. He's going to be great to watch if he gets going. That is just an area where Bangladesh might just be a little bit dark horses. over 16 to 20. I want to see the figures at the end of the tournament, obviously.
Mm.
But I think that's actually an area where they could excel. The only problem is, will they have the foundation to properly get going? And that is a question which we will have the answer to, I suppose, by the end of the tournaments, because it's no good having those guys coming in after 6-7 overs.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to come in after 12, 14, if not 15 overs. But if they do, again, could potentially win a couple of games.
Yeah, very, very dangerous. Afif is saying Yasser Ali. It is unfortunate about, no more Mahmudullah, but they could potentially replace that role with these guys.